Others should be able to see. So you're
Okay.
live.
Okay. A very good evening to all of you. On behalf of the Social Committee of MCA-EC, we welcome all of you to the fourth session of the Empower. Those of you who are joining in for the first time to the Empower series, we have arranged different speakers from different fields who impart their knowledge and information which can be very useful for us for our day-to-day life. First time to the Empower series, we have arranged different speakers from different fields who impart their knowledge and information which can be very useful for us for our day-to-day life. First time to the Empower series, we have arranged different speakers from different fields. The Empower series is usually on the fourth Sunday of every month at 8:30 p.m. The sessions are usually for an hour long, and we have 2 or 3 speakers depending upon the topic. Today's Empower series is all about health and its benefits. And the speakers are Pramila Mendonca, who would be speaking about stroke prevention, Dr. Selwyn Baptist, who would be speaking about diabetes, and Anita Pinto de Souza, who would be speaking about the importance of diet and exercise. Before we start the presentation, I just wanted to inform each and every one of you that the speakers will be speaking for about 8 to 10 minutes, and we will have the question and answer session at the end after all the speakers are done. So all of you can start entering your questions, and we will take it one by one at the end. So without further ado, our first speaker of the day is Pramila Mendonca. Pramila Mendonca, 1996, from the College of Nursing, Bangalore, and she has worked as a registered nurse for the past 20 years in various departments and hospitals. She attained her adult and geriatrics nurse practitioner degree from Rutgers State University, NJ, in 2015. She also completed 240 clinical trials under the guidance of State Stroke Coordinator and conducted many stroke awareness programs in the rural and underprivileged areas. She is currently working as the Director of Nursing in an adult medical daycare center. So over to you, Pramila. You can take it from here.
Thank you, Norma. Good evening, everyone. As you all know, I'll be talking about stroke, what is stroke, types, risk factor, and very importantly, warning signs and prevention. Most important message I'm going to convey here to recognize stroke symptoms and potentially save somebody's life. Stroke is a very vast topic. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. So let's start with the stroke. What is a stroke or brain attack? Or medical term, we call it as a CVA. Stroke is a sudden impairment in brain function. This happens when there is disruption in the function of the brain due to lack of blood supply. Sudden paralysis or sudden loss of sensation, that would be a stroke. Even though brain occupies only 5% of our body weight, it needs 20% of total blood supply to function properly. When that blood supply is restricted or blocked, the life-giving oxygen in the blood can get to the delicate brain tissues and they die within minutes. And when nerve cells or neurons, brain has altogether like 200 billion neurons, don't function. The part of the body they control can't function either. The devastating effects of stroke are often permanent because dead brain cells can't be replaced unless you get the treatment on time. Okay, in the next slide, we'll see who supplies blood to the brain. Let me tell you a little bit about it. There are 2 major arteries, as you see in this picture, in the slide. The main artery which supplies the blood to the brain is called the carotid artery. And there are 2 pairs of big arteries which carry blood to the brain. One is internal carotid arteries which run along the front of your neck. These arteries where you can check for a pulse. You must have noticed when you go to your doctor, he listens to these arteries on your neck to make sure that they are not blocked. If the arteries are blocked, he can hear breathy and swishing sound. The second pair of arteries is vertebral arteries, which run along the back of a neck. These arteries continue to branch throughout the brain, supplying clean blood to all of its tissues. Unless these arteries or other arteries located elsewhere in the body become clogged or blocked by the atherosclerosis. So as in the picture you see two arteries, one carotid artery which is front of a neck and one vertebral artery which is the back of a neck. These are two major arteries which supply blood supply to the brain. So in the next slide I'll talk about atherosclerosis. This is the main cause for this stroke. What is this clot or atherosclerosis? Who causes this? Let me explain it to you here. Atherosclerosis is called hardening of the arteries. As you see in this picture, this artery's lumen is very clear. The blood can pass without any obstruction. But whereas this artery has a plaque formation along the inner lining of the artery wall, this blocks the supply of the blood to the brain. Atherosclerosis is called hardening of the arteries. It occurs when plaque builds up inside the lining of the arteries and narrows the arteries, making it easy for the clots to form and further narrows that artery. What is plaque? I told you plaque builds up in the lining of the artery. Plaque builds up when there is high cholesterol, and this cholesterol collects inside the lining of the arteries along with fat, calcium, and other substances. This plaque or clot can break free from other arteries and blocks the blood vessels in the brain. That is the reason it is very important to keep cholesterol, LDL levels within the normal limit. In the next slide, we will see the types of strokes. There are two types of stroke. One is ischemic stroke, and second one is hemorrhagic stroke or called bleeding stroke. Ischemia means decreased blood supply. And this kind of stroke or ischemic stroke is common in elderly patients. This stroke occurs as a result of an obstruction within a blood vessel or an artery supplying blood to the brain. You can see in this picture, there is a blood vessel and it is blocked by this plaque, and also clot. You can see this clot, and blood cannot pass through this clot. And this is the CT scan image of this ischemic stroke. And same thing here, clot and blood returns back. It cannot pass through this clot to reach the brain. It accounts for about 87% of all stroke cases. Major cause is clot formation, or otherwise called plaque. In case of atrial fibrillation or defect in the heart contraction, these clots can form and travel to the brain. Second type of stroke is hemorrhagic stroke or bleeding stroke. This kind of stroke is common in healthy individuals between the age of 40 and 60. It happens when the weakened brain vessel or artery ruptures and blood spills into the brain. Main cause for this kind of stroke is uncontrolled hypertension. Due to prolonged high pressure in the vessel of the brain, the wall becomes thin or weak and eventually they burst open, resulting in bleeding. In this slide, you can see the artery which ruptured and leaks blood into the brain. And this is the MRI image of the brain showing hemorrhagic stroke. And you see the normal artery, weakened wall of the artery, and hemorrhagic stroke. Blood leaks into the brain. This is the same thing. It shows difference between ischemic stroke and hemorrhagic stroke. Next thing I would like to discuss about TIA. Many of you heard about TIA. What is TIA? Or one more name for TIA is mini stroke. TIA full form is transient ischemic attack. As the name suggests, transient means lasting only for a short time. This occurs due to brief interruption in the blood supply to the part of the brain due to a clot or debris. Symptoms will remain for few seconds to hours without the permanent damage. That's because clot resolves by itself. Although stroke occurs without any warning signal, TIA might be a warning sign that the person might experience a stroke in few hours or days to years. 1 out of 3 persons who have TIA may get the stroke. It should be investigated to find out origin of the clot to prevent further stroke. So this is the imaging picture of TIA. The clot, the clot resolved here and blood can pass through this artery. So there are some stroke facts in the United States. As per CDC, stroke is the 5th leading cause of death in the US and a leading cause of adult disability. Every year, more than 795,000 people in the United States have a stroke. Stroke kills almost 130,000 Americans each year, and stroke kills more than twice as many American women every year as breast cancer. There is some about South Asian. There are not a lot of studies done on South Asians, but some evidence suggests that South Asians are very susceptible to coronary artery disease, or one more name is atherosclerotic disease, because of a combination of traditional, novel, and genetic risk factors. Among US Asian groups, South Asians have higher rates of overweight, obesity, and report the least physical activity. Everyone sounds familiar? In the next slide, I would like to talk about risk factors. What increases your risk of stroke? There are 2 types of risk factors. One is modifiable risk factor. As you see in the slide, these are all risk factors which can be modified, which can be reduced or which can be avoided. First is blood pressure. It can be controlled. Regular visit to your physician, monitoring blood pressure regularly and keeping it within normal limit. Everybody knows that what is the normal limit of blood pressure. It should be below 120 or 80. Next, risk factor is diabetes mellitus or DM, or blood sugar. Common language is sugar. Can be controlled by a strict diet and exercise regimen. And next risk factor is high cholesterol. So it can be controlled by eating less dukramas and other kind of red meat to reduce the cholesterol level. And smoking, and it is the 5th leading risk factor, and 6th is lack of exercise and overweight. Diet with too much salt. Daily salt intake should not be more than a teaspoon or 2300 milligram per day. Some medication like birth control pills and hormone replacement therapy. Diet with less fruits and vegetables. Eating fast food. And some of the studies showed that people who have the fast food restaurants in the neighborhood have higher risk of stroke. Next one is heavy alcohol intake. So these are the modifiable risk factors. We can work hard and try to reduce these risk factors, or we can try to avoid these risk factors. There are some risk factors are non-modifiable. Unfortunately, we are not able to control these risk factors. We have to take them along with us. The first one is age. The risk of stroke increases with age. Race. African Americans have higher risk than those of other races. Gender. Men have higher rate until 75 years, and after 75, women have more stroke than men due to higher life expectancy of women. And fourth non-modifiable risk factor is family history. If anybody in your family had a stroke or TIA, and particularly at an younger age, younger than 50, so this is one more risk factor. And if you have previous history of stroke or TIA, these are non-modifiable risk factors. With these risk factors, we need to be extra careful. Keep following diet, exercise, and good health. Avoid alcohol and smoking. Next, very importantly, in the first, before I start my speech, I told you about warning signs. How to identify these warning signs? These are very important. Please watch this video. Sorry about this. Just okay. Okay, you saw here very important warning signs. I'm sorry about the sound quality. I think um, so. I'm talking in briefly about this. As you see in this video, we have to follow fast. 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 F stands for face. Ask the person to smile in case if you see that person is having a stroke. When the face looks uneven or if you notice drooping of one side of the mouth, this is a sign of the stroke. Don't wait. Please call 911. And next one is A. A stands for arm. Ask the person to raise both arms. If they cannot lift both arms or one arm drops down, that's a problem. Don't wait. Call 911. And S stands for speech. Ask the person to repeat the simple sentence like outside is sunny. But if they can't repeat or if you notice slurry speech, next step you do is to call 911. And T is for time. If you observe any of these signs, please call 911. Time is very crucial because time lost is brain loss. There are other warning signs you should be able to recognize as soon as possible. Sudden numbness or weakness of the face, arm and leg on one side of the body. Uncommon to have stroke affecting both arms and both legs at the same time. Reason is left side of the brain controls the right side of the body and vice versa. If left side of the brain is affected, then we will have right-sided weakness, and if right side of the body is affected, then we'll have left-sided weakness. Usually only one half of the body is usually affected. As you see in this picture, slide, right side of the brain is affected and left side of the body is affected. That is, right side of the brain controls left side of the body. Next, warning sign, sudden confusion, trouble speaking or understanding, sudden trouble seeing in one or both eyes, sudden trouble walking, dizziness, loss of balance or coordination, and sudden headache. Headache is very common in the bleeding stroke or hemorrhagic stroke along with other symptoms, and it is very rare in ischemic stroke. Patients state that is the worst headache in their life. When you notice all of these warning signs, don't wait, please call 911. That is the only thing you do is calling 911. So there are so many treatments available to reduce devastating effects of this stroke, as long as you take the patient to the ER as soon as possible. Treatment is available, but time is of essence. Today there are treatments that can reduce the risk of damage from the most common type of stroke, but only if you get help quickly, within 3 hours of your first symptoms. As soon as you or someone in your family or in your neighborhood have stroke-like symptoms, please call 911. If you see any above said symptoms in a person, first thing you do is call 911. There is a window of 3 hours for the patient to get the clot buster to prevent the further damage to the brain cells. Each minute counts. We are going to lose 1.5 million neurons each minute. Until and unless you do the CT scan, you cannot find out what type of stroke the person is experiencing. In the CT scan, you can find out the kind of stroke, and your treatment should be based on the kind of stroke. In case of ischemic stroke, you use aspirin, which stops further clots, and other FDA-approved drug called clot buster or TPA, tissue type plasminogen activator. They use it to destroy the clot, and TPA should be injected within 3 hours from the onset of symptoms to dissolve the blood clot, maximum until 4.5 hours. In case of hemorrhagic stroke or bleeding stroke, We can't use this clot busters. These will increase the risk of bleeding. Treatment focuses on relieving pressure on the brain and reduce the hypertension. Use an antihypertensives to decrease the pressure. So you learn about treatment. Next we'll see what are the complications if the person doesn't get the treatment on time. Complications are paralysis or loss of muscle movement, difficulty talking or swallowing, memory loss or thinking difficulties, emotional problems, pain, changes in behavior and self-care ability. The main aspect will learn how to prevent the stroke. So as you all know, we have to control all these risk factors, modifiable risk factors. How to prevent these possibilities of stroke? 80% of strokes are preventable. Regular checkups with your physician, regular checkup of the blood pressure, monitoring the BP regularly, and maintaining it within the normal limit. As you all know, normal BP is 120/80. Find out about the irregular heartbeat, or called AFib, atrial fibrillation. It is the common reason for the stroke, and take the appropriate treatment like blood thinners for the lifetime. Quit smoking, drink alcohol in moderation, watch what you eat. Eating diet rich in fruits and vegetables is very helpful. Exercising regularly and monitor sugar regularly to keep diabetes in control with diet and exercise regimen. Low sodium, low fat diet. And if you experience or someone in your family experiences stroke symptoms, call 911 immediately. Every minute counts. There are some myths about the stroke. So let me tell you what is myth. Stroke is not preventable, but reality is up to 80% of strokes are preventable. Myth is it cannot be treated. Stroke requires emergency treatment. And myth is only occurs in elderly. That is not true. Anyone can have a stroke. As I told you, the hemorrhagic stroke is more common in 40 to 60 years old. And it happens in the heart. That's wrong. Reality stroke is a brain attack. Recovery ends after 6 months. Stroke recovery can last a lifetime. At the end, I would like to tell you, be a stroke smart. Anyone can be a stroke smart. Learn these 3 R's and help to prevent complications of stroke. Reduce stroke risk. Everybody knows now what are the stroke risks, risk factors. Try to reduce them and recognize stroke symptoms as soon as you can, and responding to the stroke symptoms by calling at 911 immediately at the first sign of stroke. So here I come to an end of my topic. Thank you, MCA-EC, for giving me an opportunity to deliver this important message.
Thank you, Pramila, for the talk on stroke prevention. This was really extremely informative. We will keep these tips in mind and also reduce our intake of dokramas and also recognize the symptoms and take the necessary preventions as soon as possible. Thank you once again. Our next speaker for tonight is Dr. Selvin Baptist. Dr. Selvin Baptist, he is a graduate of St. John's Medical College, Bangalore. He is board certified in anatomic and clinical pathology by the American Board of Pathology, and he is also a fellow of the College of American Pathologists and the American Society of Clinical Pathologists. He is the chairman of pathology and chief of clinical biochemistry. He has served on the executive committee of Essex County Medical Society in New Jersey, and he is also a member of AMA, AACC, and so many more. Dr. Baptist is actively involved in doing research. He has published several book chapters, articles, and abstracts on various topics in pathology. He has spoken at the state, national, as well as the international meetings of pathologists. He is actively involved in the process of standardizing the laboratory testing within laboratories and hospitals at Barnabas Health System in New Jersey. Currently, he is the chairman of the Foundation for Advancement in Excellent Education, which is a non-profit organization that has teamed up with FAEE, which is in India, It has centers in Mangalore and Maria Seva Sangha in Bangalore and Udyan Care in New Delhi. This non-profit provides financial aid to deserving students in Mangalore, Bangalore, as well as Delhi regions. Today, Dr. Selvan would be speaking about the rising incidence of diabetes among Asian Indians. Over to you, Dr. Selvan.
Thank you, Norma, and good evening, MCA-EC members. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this talk on diabetes. I will define diabetes and the different types of diabetes. Then I will list the reasons why Indians are at high risk for diabetes, and end by talking about what can be done to lower the risk for diabetes. As most of you know, the cells in our body need energy in the form of sugar to work. Insulin, a hormone produced by the beta cells of the pancreas, helps sugar to enter the cells. Diabetes is a disease in which sugar builds up in the blood because insulin production is insufficient and or the cells of the body become resistant to insulin. In 2012, there were 29 million diabetics in the USA. Of these, 21 million were diagnosed, but 8.1 million were undiagnosed. Next slide, please. There are two main forms of diabetes, type 1 and type 2 diabetes. There are less frequent forms of diabetes like gestational diabetes, where insulin resistance is caused by pregnancy. Then there's maturity onset diabetes of the young, caused by gene mutations, and other forms, but they're not that frequent. So I will limit my talk to types 1 and 2 diabetes. As you see on the slide, type 1 diabetes is a disease of the immune system, which is the body's way to fight infection. In 2012, 1.25 million people had type 1 diabetes in the United States. In people with type 1 diabetes, the immune system attacks the beta cells, the insulin-producing cells of the pancreas, and destroys them. The pancreas can no longer produce insulin, so people with type 1 diabetes need to take insulin daily to live. The pancreas starts producing less insulin. Type 1 diabetes can occur at any age, but the disease develops most often in children and young adults. These patients usually have increased thirst and urination, constant hunger, weight loss, and blurred vision. Children may feel tired all the time. Next slide, please. Type 2 diabetes. The first step in development of type 2 diabetes is often a problem with the body's response to insulin, called insulin resistance. This means that the body needs increasing amounts of insulin to control the blood sugar level. The pancreas tries to make more insulin, but after several years, insulin production may drop off. Type 2 diabetes used to be found mainly in adults who were overweight and over age 40. Now, as more children and adolescents in the United States become overweight and inactive, type 2 diabetes occurs more often in young people. Many people with type 2 diabetes are overweight. Usually there are no symptoms, but these patients may have symptoms like the need to urinate often, intense thirst, and blurry vision. Next slide, please. So the diagnostic criteria for diabetes and its risk states are as follows. To diagnose diabetes using venous blood samples, either the fasting plasma glucose level must be equal to or greater than 126 milligrams per deciliter, or the 2-hour post-glucose load plasma glucose level must be equal to or greater than 200 milligrams per deciliter on 2 separate occasions. If the fasting plasma glucose level is greater than normal but less than 126 milligrams per deciliter, we have impaired fasting glycemia, a pre-diabetic condition. If the 2-hour post-glucose load plasma glucose level is equal to or greater than 140 milligrams but less than 200 milligrams per deciliter, we have impaired glucose tolerance, which is also a pre-diabetic condition. Pre-diabetic patients are at higher risk for diabetes. Next slide, please. As you can see on this slide, the high blood sugar levels seen in diabetes can lead to many complications. Pre-diabetics can also get nerve damage and suffer from a condition called peripheral neuropathy, a condition in which the small nerves in the extremities, like the lower limbs, can get damaged, and the patients suffer from altered sensation and may even have pain. Low blood sugar can also produce symptoms and complications. Next slide, please. In 2010, there were 25.8 million diabetics in the United States. This number increased to 29.1 million in 2012. Of these, 21 million were diagnosed, as I said before, and an astounding 81 million were undiagnosed. During this period, there were 1.4 million new cases of diabetes per year, and a huge number of people 20 years and over had pre-diabetes. There were 86 million people who had pre-diabetes. In 2012, 9% of Asian Americans had diabetes, but a breakdown of the rates of diabetes amongst Asian Americans shows that Asian Indians had a rate of 13%, the highest rate among Asian Americans. Next slide, please. So why are Asian Indians at high risk for diabetes? In India, there are about 32 million diabetics, and the number is expected to double in the next 30 years. So what do we know? We know that Indians have more insulin resistance and more mitochondrial function. The mitochondria are structures within the cells of our bodies. They are like factories where sugar from the food we eat is converted into ATP, a form of energy to keep the cells functioning. Indians produce more energy from less calories in food consumed, more than Northern Europeans who consume food for the same, with the same amount of calories. Centuries ago, this was an adaptive advantage when many were farmers and vegetarian, and the calorie content of their diet was low. But this adaptive advantage has become a huge disadvantage for Indians who moved to the cities and moved away from lifestyles that involved a higher level of physical activity and diets dominated in low-calorie foods. It is also a big disadvantage for Indians who have come to the United States of America, the land of plenty. So the excess food is being stored as fat. Indians are becoming obese and at a higher risk for diabetes and its complications. And you heard about one of them in the earlier talk on stroke. Next slide, please. So the reference value for body mass index for Indians is less than 23. The body mass index is obtained by taking the weight in kilograms and dividing it by the square of the height in meters. Indians are overweight if the BMI is between 23 and 25, and they are obese if the BMI is greater than 25. Indians tend to accumulate fat around the belly. The reference value for the waist circumference in Indian men is less than 90 centimeters, and for women it's less than 85 centimeters. Indians with waist circumference above these reference values are at increased risk for diabetes and all its complications. Next slide, please. So what can be done to lower the risk for diabetes? We Asian Indians in the USA can lower our risk for diabetes by adopting lifestyle changes. And you heard about this on the previous talk also. Make healthy food choices, be active, lose weight, stop smoking, and avoid alcohol, or at least try to reduce the amount consumed. Regardless of the alcoholic beverage consumed, a standard drink contains roughly the same amount of alcohol, whether you're drinking one bottle of beer or a peg of scotch or a glass of wine. The amount of alcohol in each of those drinks is the same, 14 grams of alcohol. And each gram of alcohol equals 7 calories. Dr. Narayan, my friend and colleague from St. John's, who now works at the CDC, and his co-workers have stated in their publication, quoted on the slide, states that a policy solution for the diabetes epidemic will require the participation of all sectors, government and society. We are already seeing some of this happening. Coke started providing the Diet Coke as a result of this awareness. Finally, since there is a genetic link to diabetes, we are glad that we are now able to do blood tests to identify specific genes in an individual. Panels of genes are now available, and we are also now available at much lower cost to do whole genome sequencing to determine all the genes in an individual. And what we have yet to discover is the associations between genes in an individual and the risk of developing diabetes, and use the information to lower the risk or eliminate the risk altogether. Hopefully this will happen soon. That is my last slide. Thank you. Oh, show the next slide, please.
Yes, please. Yep.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Selvin, for your presentation. And I'm really sorry for all those of you who had issues with seeing the slides. We had some issues with that, but I'm sure all of us gained a lot of knowledge through Dr. Selvin, and I'm sure we all would benefit from this session. And I would send out the slides for this session with everybody. So for our last speaker of the day is Anita Clara Pinto de Souza. Anita was born and brought up in Morbidri in Mangalore, and she has done her bachelor's in physical therapy from Father Muller's College, Mangalore, and master's in cardiorespiratory from Bangalore. She currently holds physical therapy license for NYNJ State. He is also the assistant professor in physical therapy at Oxford College, Bangalore. and she was also a visiting faculty at various schools in Bangalore to educate young children on the importance of diet and exercise. She's married to Ivan D'Souza and they have two kids. Today, Anita will be speaking to us about healthy living and the importance of healthy eating and exercise. Over to you, Anita.
Thank you, Norma. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here before you to share some inputs on healthy living, and I hope it is useful for at least those who hardly have time to get up from chair in their busy world. In the past, whether trending our crops or hunting wild boar, most of our lives as humans were lived on our feet, and there was no scope for obesity, unless there was some hereditary factor. But with the advent of TV, computers, and the desk job, we are sitting down ever before in history, even more time than we spend in sleeping. Our bodies weren't built for that, and it's starting to take its toll. We might want to stand up for this. We hear a lot about living a healthy lifestyle, enough that the phrase healthy lifestyle may be one we would like to permanently retire. The problem is, the phrase describes the life we need to live if we want to get our best bodies, one that looks good and feels good. The trick to healthy living is making small changes, taking more steps each day, adding fruit to your cereal, having an extra glass of water, or saying no to that second helping of dukramas or buttery mashed potatoes. So what else can you be doing to live healthy? Your first order of business is to start exercising. In the next slides, we can see why we need to do exercise. Following is the detail about the national trends which were taken in the year 2015. 69% of adults are overweight in the US. Approximately 35% of adults are obese. 18% of children ages 6 to 18 are overweight. And obesity is the second leading cause of preventable premature deaths. Leading cause of death in American Indians is cardiovascular disorders. Consumers spend around 50 billion in diet industry every year. One of the biggest reasons we have a weight problem these days is because we sit around too much. The studies have proven that as we sit more, the fat cells increase in size due to pressure. We need to exercise, but we have so many excuses not to do it. We are too busy, don't know where to start, we are not motivated, or we are afraid we'll injure ourselves, or we are afraid that exercises has to be vigorous for what our bodies can handle. The truth is, everything counts, and the more you move, the healthier you will be. Do you know sitting wrecks your body? Here we will come to know how it wrecks our bodies. As soon as you sit, calorie burning drops to 1 per minute. Enzymes that help break down the fat drops to 90%. Electrical activity in leg muscles shuts off because there is no activity in the muscle. After 2 hours, good cholesterol drops by 20%. After 24 hours, insulin effectiveness drops by 24% and risk of diabetes increases. That's why sitting is considered as new smoking. Because of these disastrous effects, sitting is considered as new smoking. So let us stop warming up the chairs or sofas or floors for some people and start moving. It may not be always possible at workplace, but at least after work. So let's start moving our butt. So what does it do? It prevents leading causes of deaths in the world. According to American College of Sports Medicine, sedentary lifestyle is a risk factor for cardiovascular disorders. It slows down the flow of blood. High blood pressure is the main cause of heart attack and stroke. Exercise reduces the cholesterol plaque that clog the arteries and thus prevents stroke and heart attack. Let's see how it prevents some types of cancer. Exercise helps to prevent obesity, a major risk factor for several types of cancer. It enhances immune system. It activates antioxidant enzymes that protect cells from free radical damage. That's how it prevents mainly the colon cancer and the breast cancer. Now we'll see how exercise prevents diabetes, especially the type 2 diabetes. Exercise increases insulin sensitivity, which controls the blood glucose levels. It controls body weight and it lowers the body fat. It reduces the risk of cardiovascular disorders. We might have seen the more inactive we are, the more depressed we look. Exercise can help prevent depression. In fact, recent studies have shown that exercise was found to be just as effective as antidepressant. Initially, maybe the response is a bit slower. It releases feel-good brain chemicals that may ease depression. Exercise lubricates the joint, increases the strength of bone and the muscle, and it reduces stress on joint. So it maintains bone mass and thus prevents osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, and low back pain. So even if you opt for small changes and a more modest weight loss, you can see the benefits are still pretty good. One study has found that just a 10% weight reduction helped obese patients to reduce blood pressure, cholesterol, and increase longevity. Let's see some simple ways to get moving. While watching TV, we can work on treadmill. We can get involved in household chores like gardening, raking leaves, shoveling, pacing while on the phone. We can park our car at the farthest end of the parking lot. We can spend more time playing with kids, or we can use staircase instead of an elevator. And we can install the app known as speedometer, which shows how many, it keeps a track on how many steps we take per day. The studies have shown more than 6,000 till 10,000 is good enough to keep ourselves fit. Not only exercise, even eating healthy food is as important as exercise. Not only can a clean diet help with weight management, it can also improve the health and quality of life as we get older. There's an app called My Plate, which will determine how many calories you need and what food groups you should focus on. Other than that, we can eat more fruit, sneak in more veggies, try a healthy salad dressing, which is low in fat, eat low fat or fat-free dairy. These are the few ways we can control our diet. We can make some substitutions for high-calorie foods too. Creating a healthy lifestyle doesn't have to mean drastic changes. In fact, drastic changes almost always lead to failure. Making small changes in how you live each day can lead to big rewards. So figure out what you can do to be healthy. So till now we saw why exercise and eating healthy is important. Let's move on to how exercises has to be done. So physical activity is anything that makes you move your body and burn calories. Physical fitness is the ability to carry out tasks without undue fatigue, which comes through structured exercises. So we'll see the principles of physical fitness. They are called as FIT. Frequency, that is how often. Intensity is how hard. Type is the type of exercises. Time is duration. So now I'll be telling about the type of exercises. There are three kinds of fitness: aerobic fitness, strength, and flexibility. For our body to be fit, we need to concentrate on all the three types of training, that is aerobic, strength, and flexibility. Aerobic is a continuous movement that uses big muscle groups and is performed at an intensity that causes the heart, lungs, and vascular system to work harder than at rest. Aerobic exercise, they condition and strengthen our heart, lungs, muscles, and immune system. So these are some of the aerobic training exercises like outdoor and indoor, walking, jogging, running is very common. And there are some high impact exercises, especially soccer is both an aerobic and anaerobic. So those who have heart problems or health problems, it's better to consult the doctor or before moving on to these high impact exercises like soccer. Next is strength training. Strength is nothing but to improve the power. Strength allows us to move and endurance allows us to perform work over time. 40% of our lean body mass is made up of muscles, so we need to strengthen them. If you don't strengthen or if you don't use them, they get atrophied. So free weights and the body weight is the two main things where we can use to improve our strength. Free weights is nothing but the dumbbells or the bars. The other body weight is like push-ups, pull-ups, and squats and lunges. Next is flexibility training. Flexibility is the ability to move a joint through its range of motion. We lose flexibility with disuse and aging, and lack of flexibility is the main cause of low back pain and arthritis. The benefits are decreased chances of muscular injury, soreness, and pain. It helps prevent and reduce lower back pain, improves joint health. The tight muscles always stress the joints. So the main activities will be stretching, yoga, Pilates, and Tai Chi. So next, it's frequency, how frequent you are supposed to exercise. Aerobic exercise and flexibility training, they go hand in hand. So you have to do it 3 to 5 times a week at least. And strength training, you can do 2 days per week. Next is intensity, that is how hard you must do. So usually they say to burn the fat and to improve aerobic fitness, 60 to 80% of maximum heart rate is used as intensity. Maximum heart rate is 220 minus age. Suppose a person's age is 20, his maximum heart rate will be 220 minus 20, that is 200. May not be much accurate. In clinics and all, they use the stress test to find out the maximum heart rate. So 60 to 80% of 200 is used as an intensity while doing fat burning exercises and aerobic zone. But some marathon runners or gymnastic, they may go for anaerobic zone also, that is 80 to 90%. And the red line zone is 90 to 100%, which is too dangerous. We are just taxing the heart. So time. Aerobic exercises are done 20 to 60 minutes, continuous aerobic activity. In the beginning, it will be a little difficult, so you can start with 15 minutes and later on improve it to 20, 30, and you can maintain for 60 minutes. That is initial 10 minutes of warm-up and at the end cool down, that I'll be taking it, and in between the conditioning phase. Strength exercises, you can do 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions. Here also, when you lift the weight, you should not lift the maximum weight, but 70 to 80% of maximum weight you should be lifting. Stretching has to be done during all aerobic activities, and stretch should be held for 10 to 30 seconds. So while stretching, you breathe in, and when you relax, breathe out. The very next important thing I would like to share is warm up and cool down. And even in our own MCA-EC, we have seen many cases where people have undergone sprain, strain because of lack of warm up. Warming up and cooling down are good for your exercise performance. You will do better, faster, stronger. And for your heart, since the increased work on the heart steps up with exercise. A good warm-up dilates your blood vessels, ensuring that your muscles are well supplied with oxygen. It also raises the muscle's temperature for optimal flexibility and efficiency. By slowly raising your heart rate, the warm-up also helps minimize stress on the heart. Warming up before any workout or sport is critical for preventing injury and prepping your body. You can warm up for 5 to 10 minutes. The more intense the activity, the longer the warm-up. Do whatever activity you plan on doing, maybe a running, walking, or cycling. Do it in a slower pace. Use the entire body. If warm-up is not done properly, the chances of musculoskeletal injury becomes doubled. It may be sprain or strain or fracture. So once your body is warmed up, you can start stretching the body for some time, which increases your flexibility also, and it will prepare for the proper exercise period time. Next is cool down. Cooling down after workout is as important as warming up. After physical activity, the heart is still beating faster than normal, the body temperature is higher, and the blood vessels are dilated. This means if you stop too fast, all these things, the heart rate, BP, they'll stop suddenly. So you may pass out or feel sick, or you may get lightheadedness. So a cool down after physical activity allows a gradual decrease at the end of the episode. It's good to stretch when you're cooling down because your limbs, muscles, and joints are still warm. Stretching can help reduce the buildup of lactic acid, which is responsible mainly for muscle cramping and stiffness. So this you can reduce by stretching and cool down. Walk for about 5 minutes or at least till your heart rate reduces from maximum. So that's the importance of warm up and cool down. The next is be safe. Drink extra water, always warm up and cool down before and after your workout, wear comfortable clothing, avoid exercising in the very hot sun. You may there are chances of dehydration, and have your food 2 hours at least before exercise. Pay attention to any discomfort you may feel during exercise. Follow your doctor's recommendations concerning medications you may be taking. Next will be step to fitness. For everything, we should have a goal. So you can write down the goal. That is, my goal is like how many steps you will take, how many number of times, or how many minutes per day. That's more important. And then there's a pre-participation checklist. So you can go through these points. If the answer is yes to any question, it's better to consult with the physician before beginning an exercise program. Now what? Decide what you want. Write your goal. Visualize achieving this goal. Write it down, include details, reread it often, and reward yourself. It's always better to do a group planning. Your motivation increases as well as interest also increases, and sometimes it may lead to competition. So you will never fail to do the exercises. So we are what we repeatedly do. Make it part of your life, follow fit, and be fit. There are 1,440 minutes in every day. Let us schedule at least 30 minutes of them for physical activity. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you, MCA-EC.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Anita, for the presentation. It was very knowledgeable. And I'm sure many of us will inculcate these tips for healthy eating and exercise in our day-to-day workouts, as well as inculcate the healthy eating habits from now on. Thank you, speakers, for the wonderful talks. They were very informative and helpful. So now, let's move on to the question and answer session. The first question is for Pramila. Pramila, for you, someone has asked, does drinking alcohol cause brain cells to die faster and affect memory?
Norma, can you repeat that question, please?
Yeah, sure. The question is, does drinking alcohol cause brain cells? Does drinking alcohol cause brain cells to die faster and affect memory?
Thank you, Norma. So, as per studies shown, moderate amount of alcohol intake doesn't affect the brain cells, but heavy drinking damages the brain cells, especially dendrite part of the brain cells. As I told you before, brain cells, otherwise called neuron, it has three parts: axon, dendrites, and body. So it damages the dendrite part of the neuron. But I don't know how much is safe to take, and there are no studies showing that alcohol kills the brain cells. And impairing memory, yeah, it affects some of the part memory to a bit. We have seen whenever somebody drinks alcohol, you see there's like otherwise called it's a delirium. They just like memory impairment for short period. So there is no study. There are not many studies done on like memory power and alcohol. But there is a good news for Mangaloreans. A glass of wine, red wine, is beneficial, it says, because wine opens up the vessels. It helps in good circulation. There is a chemical called resveratrol. It helps in the opening of the blood vessels. So wine is good, but I don't know how much amount of alcohol affects or damages the brain cells.
Thank you, Anita, for the answer. I'm sure the moment you said wine, all of us had a very broad smile on our face. Anyways, I hope that answer was pretty good and very clear to everyone. The next question is for you, Dr. Selvin. Is diabetes hereditary?
Hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can.
Okay. Some types of diabetes are hereditary, but we don't have all the answers yet because we don't know which genes are involved, and we are still searching for them. There are panels that are available now to find out if you have some of the genes that can be passed on, but we don't have the answers yet.
Okay. I suppose that answers most of the questions what people had asked, and that clears the notion what it is at the beginning. Anita, the next question for you is: what is the safe what is the safe heart rate during a regular weekly workout? Like whenever you run or whenever you walk on the treadmill and then you hold your hands on the heartbeat rate, it shows like 160 or 180. Is that considered to be a normal heart rate, or what is your inputs on that, please?
It's a good question, Norma. It's related to your age, actually. Like I said, maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age.
Yep.
So that's the maximum. So you should not tax your heart to the maximum heart rate. So at the beginning, if you're a beginner, you can keep it as 30 to 40% of that maximum heart rate. Suppose I said 20 is the age, 220 minus 20 is 200, right? So if you're a beginner, keep it as 30 to 40% of the maximum heart rate. And as you increase weekly, you can increase it, and your maintenance phase should be 60 to 80% of your maximum heart rate. That should be good, but it should be 60% of your maximum heart rate at least to get the benefits. And that is a place where fat starts burning.
Yep. Thank you, Anita. Actually, this is a question to all the speakers. Would any of you like to throw some light on HIPPA? I'm sorry, it's HIPAA. That is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Would anyone try to put some input on that for our members?
Okay, this is called HIPAA. HIPAA is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. It is a privacy rule establish national standards to protect individuals or any patient's medical records and other personal health information. It usually applies to healthcare. I think is that okay? Is that enough?
I think that's more than enough, but I mean, could you just emphasize more on that, whether it could be available, whether anyone of our members could avail the benefits from HIPAA?
So more of this, like it's whenever there's when any patient admits to the hospital and any medical records pertaining to that patient, we won't be able to give to anyone other than healthcare decision maker, like and interdisciplinary staff amongst in that hospital. For example, if someone asks from outside and like, what is the patient's name? Why is he here? We won't be able to give because we are breaking the privacy of that patient. So this is called HIPAA, and if Dr. Selvin can help me more in this.
Patient, you have the right to the privacy of your condition being maintained, and only those people who you give permission to know about your condition and share that information with others with your permission can do so. Even doctors, when they are in an elevator, are supposed to keep quiet and not discuss patients' conditions while they are in the cafeteria or in an elevator, because there might be members of the public too in those areas that can overhear what you're saying. So it's really to protect patients' rights and the privacy of their health situation. I hope that answers your question.
Oh yes, I suppose that answers the question, but in case if anybody would like to ask all the 3 speakers, I would send out an email with their email address as well as a phone number, so you could shoot out the questions directly to them. So if there are any further questions, please could you just type it on the link, on the broadcast link right now. We would give you a minute or two.
I saw that question about Ayurvedic medicine and diabetes. There are a number of things that can lower your blood sugar level, like ginger and garlic, and there are many Ayurvedic medicine, but I'm not an expert in Ayurvedic medicine. But yes, there are Ayurvedic medicine that can lower your blood sugar level. They don't cure it as yet, but they do help to lower the sugar level. I hope that answers your question.
Oh yes, Dr. Selvin, I am sure that it does help to answer the question. So if we have any further questions, we would send out an email to you guys, and you guys could shoot in your questions and shoot into your respective speakers so that they could answer it directly to you. So now, without further ado, I think it's kind of pretty late. We have already crossed the session by 10 minutes. So initially, I would like to thank all our speakers for sharing your knowledge, expertise, and your experience on these health topics. Many of us did learn, did learn several things, and would try to inculcate them in our day-to-day lives. As we all know, health is wealth, so let's maintain it. So just to inform everybody, our next session for the month of May is about financial planning, and it is scheduled on May 22nd at 8:30 p.m. Further notifications would be sent to you by the MCA-EC board. Thank you one and all, and thank you speakers. Good night.